Hey everybody, hope you're doing great. Have you ever wanted to grow your own greens, specifically lettuce and other vegetables and herbs that you can grow maybe indoors? Or do you live somewhere where you have limiting factors like not enough water, your seasons are too short, right? It's too hot, it's too cold, whatever it may be, you got bad soil. What's great is with aquaponics, we've hybridized, we've mixed aquaculture, raising fish or other aquatic animals in an enclosed environment, with hydroponics, the growing of plants without soil and just water. So in hydroponic growing, which works fantastic for certain plants, especially greens like these, like this little lettuce mix here, hydroponics is fantastic because you can really provide, you can ensure your plants are getting proper nutrition, enough aeration, and you can control the whole process, which is great. So when it's done right, you can end up with beautiful, perfect lettuce every single time. Now with aquaponics, we now mix them together, so instead of adding chemical fertilizer to the water, we let the fish do the work. And I'll show you a little close-up of what I'm talking about here in a second. So right here behind me, you can see it's almost ready to harvest. We're gonna do some cut and come again method. We're gonna harvest a bit of this lettuce, let it grow back. Tomorrow morning, we're gonna have the kids in here harvesting, and then we're gonna send it off to our culinary students, have them wash it up and get it prepared. They're actually opening a cafe tomorrow, open to the public, so we're gonna feed some people. So this is gonna be great. And what's nice about growing like this is it really gets around some of the issues with growing. So a lot of our growers, have you ever dealt with, bad weather, bad soil, not enough sun, too much heat, not enough heat, pests and disease? There's a lot of problems that you can encounter out in the garden or out in your farms. But one cool thing that you can get around all that, where you don't have enough water, the sunlight, whether all those things are giving you a hang up, aquaponics might be your answer. So we do it here in the classroom. We've been doing it for years. This was our first system, and I'll show you a few other ones. This is our first one, and it's actually, we converted it, and it's changed and morphed over these last few years. And I think for being a very simple, basic system, it's a great starter system. Now there's people that you'll probably find here on YouTube that are fantastic aquaponic growers, and I'd highly suggest you go search them out and learn from them as well. I'm a newbie. Granted, I've been doing it for a few years, but I'm learning stuff all the time. And since this is a small slice of what we do here, I don't get to dedicate enough time to really perfecting it, but we still learn, and we're doing our best. So in today's video, I'm going to teach you all about how to grow aquaponically in your own home. It's actually really simple. Like I said, some of the problems we've encountered have been very easy to overcome, and feels like there's a solution to every issue. And what's nice is we're not pulling weeds. We can have the perfect spring day in here all day. We can actually provide our lettuce with additional sunlight, so we can actually have a longer day of sunshine, which is fantastic for certain plants. They love that. You can induce flowering with certain types of combinations of lights. Some are better for, usually your blue wavelength is really good for your leaf production and for growing vegetative growth. And then when you get more of that red spectrum in there, that's usually for your flowering and fruiting. A lot of the lights we have in here are a mixture of those. Because some of the things we grow, we kind of want to flower and fruit, and some we want to basically provide just the leaves, and that's what we have here right now. And these are doing great. And so let's go over some of the topics and concepts that are involved in aquaponic growing. It's pretty interesting, and you might just learn some. So let's take a closer look. So every good aquaponic system is, it starts with its fish, with its creatures. In here we had some redfin tinfoils, there's a plecostomus in there, we've had crawfish in here, and a few other fish as well. But these redfin tinfoils have been great. You can get them at pretty much any aquarium store. I think they're from Asia originally. They're like a warm water, freshwater fish. And they're fantastic, actually. You can see they're pretty good size. Put my hand right there. They're probably about 6-7 inches across from tip to tail, and they're doing pretty good. And for this tank, this is probably just about as much as I'd want in there. You want enough fish that you actually have proper nutrition to feed all the plants you're going to be growing, but you don't want so many fish that they are overcrowded and they have nowhere to go, and they just feel stressed out all the time. So these are nice schooling fish. They kind of like this, and they have been just growing and growing. I wish they were edible because they're putting on some weight, but I wouldn't even eat these ones anyways because we love them too much. But in a traditional system, you can grow edible fish, which is fantastic. If you really get it going, that's the whole point, is to have fish you can cultivate and eat, and then they're, at the same time, they are fertilizing the greens you're going to be eating. So let's just first talk about how fish work here. So fish, all the time, they're breathing, they're urinating, they're defecating into the water, and all of that produces ammonia. Ammonia can be really toxic to the fish, and so if This is why people have filters and they do water changes, because if that ammonia gets, you know, basically above 0 parts per million, you're looking at a bad situation. So we try to keep the ammonia very little to no ammonia at all. We actually did a water test just recently, and this water is crystal clear of ammonia. You can see how clean the water is. We don't have a traditional filter, and I've never done a water change from the day this has started. And so it's pretty incredible. For about maybe 5-6 years this has been going, 0 water changes, and these fish have been living this entire time. I haven't lost a fish out of this tank in quite some time. So the water stays clean, but what happens is that ammonia would build up. Oftentimes it can get, bacteria will convert the ammonia into nitrites, which is also can be toxic to the fish and is not helpful to their growth, and can limit their health and their ability to survive and adapt and do well. And so we don't want ammonia, we don't want nitrites. And so it's great is in this system, how the aquaponics system works is we have a pump down below. You can see our algae eater there. He's just there because he helps keep everything clean. I've never scrubbed the walls on the inside there. He does all that work for us. But it starts with a nice pump. They don't have to be too expensive, but make sure you got a pump strong enough for the height that you're pumping it up to, and the beds. So this one's does the trick for us. It pumps water up the pipes. The pipes go out the back and up the back. You can see it back there. And how we like to use gravity. Ooh, look at that lettuce. But, you know, I might even turn off these lights so you can see how they look in a true color. But it goes the pipe goes all the way to the back and pumps water up to the top here. And so you can see right here, there's a little downspout, and water is getting pumped into there. You can see right here, this is called the LECA, the lightweight expanded clay aggregate. And it is just clay pebbles that acts like soil, but it doesn't dissolve into the water, because if you use dirt, it would just all end up at the bottom. And so that's not ideal. And so that lightweight expanded clay aggregate, it fills up this entire bed. Now the water's flowing through here and it floods it, but it only floods it to a certain depth. What it is you want at least 1 to 2 inches of dry gravel, basically dry gravel above the water level. So the water level's here, the gravel level needs to be at least 1 inch or 2 inches above that. So that way there's just a somewhat of a dry spot for the base of your plants to sit. You don't want them just completely submerged, although their roots are fully submerged. Look how thick this is. We just planted these just a few weeks back, I think back in October. It's now end of November. And this is a mescaline mix, a little spring mix. So it's actually a lot of different lettuces mixed together, different varieties. And so we're gonna come in here tomorrow and harvest these with some scissors and do a cut and come again. We're gonna cut out a lot of it, but not remove them, and then we'll let them regrow and get a second harvest. Let me turn off this light here really quick to show you. Oh, sorry. So here we go. So now the lights are off. You can see kind of more of a true color, at least the majority of the lights are off, but they're looking really good. And so like I said, it all starts with that water. The water then pumps up, it flows down. There is a drain. Here I even put in 2 drains just because we could, and I like to be able to have a stronger pump. Sometimes if the pump is too strong and your drain hole isn't big enough, you can overflow this. So we put in 2, especially if one gets clogged, the roots or something. We got 2 just in case, and now gravity pulls it down, and boom, and then that floods out the next bed. You can see the water flowing right there. It's really cool. God, aquaponics is so cool. And the lettuce, I'm telling you, when you try this, it tastes so good. I've been in here nibbling on it, and even without any dressing, it's really good. It's more sweet than it is bitter. The texture is very fresh and green and crunchy. What's nice is you notice there's no burning on the leaves. They haven't had any outside right now. We had a really hard frost this morning outside. So if these were outside, I would have came into a garden full of dead lettuce. Instead, I came indoors to my classroom to a double-decker stack of greens that are just insanely growing so well. And what's cool about growing like this is that this is beyond organic. So we feed the fish, but we can't even use organic pesticides. We don't use any fertilizers. Our fertilizer is feeding the fish. So we feed the fish poo, breathe into the water, that gets broken down from ammonia into nitrites, and then again from nitrites into nitrates. And then and those are also not good for the fish, right? But what's cool is the plants use what was going to be toxic to the fish. The plants now use it as a fuel source or a food source instead of fertilizer or nutrition in the soil. The plants can now absorb that as their fertilizer, and you can see it works out really, really well. We're having a great production here, and that is essentially aquaponics. We have to disturb the water a lot, so we have the air pump in there, always oxygenating that water. It's continually flowing and bubbling, and that disturbance in that in the surface of the water is really what's going to help dissolved oxygen make its way back into the water. Otherwise, you would have you'd see plant growth kind of diminish and slow down. You see kind of browning or dead roots. Instead, now we've got nice white, bright, fresh roots that are growing, and healthy fish as well. Because oftentimes, what's good for the plants is also good for the fish, which is fantastic. And so that's what we're after. Our pH in most of our tanks is mid-6 to low 7. This one actually had a really high pH, very alkaline this morning. And so we're working on finding a nice healthy way to bring that back into balance without having to spend too much time, money, or energy into that. But thankfully, the pH hasn't really shown itself in deficiency. Sometimes when the pH is too low or too high, sometimes you may notice your plants just aren't as healthy as they would, because the pH range of your soil or your water is going to affect the plant's ability to absorb and utilize nutrition. It's kind of like if you put duct tape over your mouth and had a tiny little hole in there. Now you can eat, but all that food has to make its way through a tiny little passageway, and then you never get enough. And that's what happens when their pH is off. They really can't absorb nutrition properly. And so healthy pH, good flowing soil, oxygenated, proper amount of fish, and then finding a crop that you like to enjoy and eat. We also grow houseplants in these and tropicals, and they grow crazy. We'll show that in another video. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those in the comment section. We'd love to hear about it. And if you want to learn more about aquaponics, I highly encourage you to do so. It's been great for us. What's cool about the system is it's really, once you get it going, it's pretty self-contained and doesn't need much effort other than just adding some water as it evaporates, feeding the fish a little bit, and then planting and harvesting. But we're not pulling weeds, we're not dealing with bad weather, we're not having to spray anything. So there's a lot of benefit to it. So I'd encourage you to learn as much as you can about it. All right, so that wasn't too bad. We actually did a harvest of our aquaponics system, and you can see, I want to show you what it looks like. We filled up 4 of these metal bowls. They're gonna go right over to our culinary program. They're gonna rinse them off, get them cleaned up and ready to be served. So it actually filled up quite a bit. So if you don't believe in the power of aquaponics, let this be your evidence. Really, long story short, you're using fish waste to basically feed your plants, which is awesome. You reduce how much water you need. Actually, the water that we use in here is about 95% of the water that we need to use outside in traditional soil-grown plants, even with the drip system, which saves a lot of water. This saves even more water than that because it's all recirculating. The water that you lose is just to evaporation, transpiration into the actual plant itself. So it really, if you're in a place where the water is limited, this is awesome for you. If your weather is rough, inside, we're indoors. It's a controlled environment. It's a perfect spring day for these plants every day of the year, and it's actually beyond perfect because we can actually elongate the amount of hours that we provide for these plants, so they grow very quickly. We did a cut and come again method here, where we had the students trim them down, give them a little buzz cut. We took just the leaves, and we left a little bit of that inner growth behind, and a little stump there. So hopefully in a few more weeks they'll heal, they'll repair, and we'll see a second flush of growth, and maybe we'll do another harvest then. But I hope this convinced you. Really, if you can get yourself some kind of container, it doesn't have to be as pretty as this. You can get some kind of tub for your plants, or for your plants or your fish. You just need access to a pump, some aeration, and a little know-how, and you can start really simply. This is a constant flow system. People that use a bell siphon. There's many different forms of aquaponics. This is just one way to do it, and you can really you can start simply. You can get very complicated and complex, but either way you do it, the results speak for themselves. Until next time, garden friends, happy gardening to you all. Please never stop growing. Like, share, subscribe, and all that nonsense, but we'll have you back here next time. See you.